Hello and welcome to Dido's webinar today on Google Cloud Platform for Higher Education. My name is David Cutter, Account Executive with Dido, and I'm joined by my colleague and prominent Google Cloud sales engineer, Sam Elcoley. Today we're going to talk about modernization of IT infrastructure and moving to the cloud for higher education. I'll start with a quick backdrop on who Dido is. Dido's been in the Google Cloud ecosystem for going on 12, almost 13 years now. We do support our customers around the full Google Cloud stack. And when I say that, we cover G Suite, Google Cloud Platform, Google Maps, Chrome, etc. And we are a premier partner based in the US. So again, to kick off today's discussion, it's really about why the cloud, why now, and especially why for higher education institutions. In today's environment with COVID, there's mounting cost pressures and implications for organizations who are really struggling to adapt. And the cloud provides an opportunity to reimagine your business, your IT, and your infrastructure to really help position you for the next generation, what the next new normal, and what that looks like. Sam, would you like to take a shot from your perspective as to, from a higher education perspective, why it's super important and critical right now to really evaluate moving to the cloud?
Yes, thank you, David. First, I just want to begin by saying that I'm a huge proponent of higher education being able to provide tools to the students and to the faculty to be able not only be able to do their job today, but be able to do their job in the future, in the coming years. We live in a very competitive landscape, a competitive landscape not only coming in from within, but also from without, which means that universities, higher education today have to be up to speed. They have to live on the technological edge. Now, the problem with that is that they can't do this right now because of cost prohibition. In other words, what you're able to do is directly aligned with the budgets that you are that you're restricted with, which means that your students are not being able to get the full benefit of research and development. Your faculty is not able to get the tools that they need to properly teach your students, and your students are missing out on the technology that's before them that maybe other education institutions have access to. So it's really important for higher education to look at their infrastructure and to see how it can provide that leverage and the advantage to our students going forward.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Sam. And while we tend to think about when we talk about moving to the cloud, and this particular discussion is focused around Google Cloud Platform and sort of the infrastructure side and computing side, it's also important to just take a brief mention of G Suite for Education and its ability to allow students and teams and faculty and staff to really work more efficiently and effectively in the cloud from a productivity perspective as well. So just throwing that out there. I know, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, David. I mean, this whole infrastructure that I talked about cannot exist and cannot work without collaboration. And that's where the G Suite comes into the collaboration end of things. So when you combine the technological research and development tools and hyper data center, which is really what the cloud is, with a collaboration suite, makes that whole environment so powerful that you're able to really innovate and you're able to excel in teaching the students, and also being able to have your staff being able to do the job more efficiently.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're seeing more and more, and we'll move on here in just a second, but we're seeing more and more, higher education and commercial organizations, for that matter, really, I think, overcomplicating their technology stack with tools that exist natively within the G Suite environment, and the G Suite and GCP environments connect really well together. So I just wanted to point that out. Thanks for the perspective.
I apologize to interrupt, but it's a great point, because when you look at G Suite and you look at GCP, they were born within the technological revolution, if you will, right? That's when they were born. If you look at other competitors like AWS, and if you look at 365, especially when you look at Microsoft, they were born from a legacy environment, right? And so they have to come up to a current technological state or standard, if you will. And so the facilities that are available are there, and they are in line with GCP. The problem is that they either kludged, interfaced, bought, open sourced, and so on and so forth to come up to compete against GCP and G Suite platforms where they're coherent, or where they are actually cohesive and purposely integrated together.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot that could be said there, and maybe we should table that for another discussion, especially when it comes to security and the beyond corp and zero trust concepts that exist within the G Suite.
Discussion.
Yeah, absolutely, right. Absolutely. But part of the modernization is being able to take advantage of such technologies and integrations there. So we will move ahead in the discussion here, Sam, and I appreciate the conversation around that initial points there. I know this is one of your favorite slides, so I'll let you take over here and talk through this.
Yeah, so having said what I said, so the next question is, this looks to me like a huge step. We've got, we don't even know where to start. There's a lot of, we don't even know how much it's going to cost. How do we maintain the current environment vis-a-vis while we're doing either migration or we're doing a small project or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of questions to go through, and there are a lot of bumps in the road. Yes, absolutely there are. But in order for you to get to the so-called promised land where you get the efficiency that you really want, you want to get the innovation and the cost structure that is commensurate with your budgeting process. Now that you can realign other expenditures that were meant for hardware, well, now you can spend that money elsewhere because you don't have to worry about that anymore. And then all of a sudden, not only are you creating value, but your productivity increases because you're able to provide more resources to your students. So how do you do all of this? It is a little bit daunting when you look at it, but it's really not that, when we break it down, it's not that complex, especially if you have someone helping you go through the process.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is overwhelming to think about it, especially for entities that are largely on-prem. How it's almost overwhelming, especially in today's environment of cost savings and cost consciousness. How and where to get started, and I think it's important that to understand that you don't have to tackle your whole system, your whole infrastructure at one time.
Oh, exactly. There is processes that have been proven to work as to how you can do a successful migration, transformation, refactoring, whatever you want to call it. There's a proven process that if you do it correctly, you don't have to necessarily run into these bumps in the road. If you're just going into it hoping to learn, you absolutely will learn a lot of things, right? But it's going to take you longer, and you will hit some bumps in the road. But the end game is, again, it's really the same. It's how fast do you want to get there and how smoothly do you want to get there.
Yeah. All right. Well, ironically, that brings us to one of our talking points here, which is
where do you start?
How and where do we get started, and what does that look like? And it can certainly take different shapes and forms for different companies. But I know you've got some good background on this, so I'll let you provide some perspective.
So it's going to be different for everybody, but the same high level, two exercises, which will in and of themselves will spawn other questions, is to determine what your goals and focus is going to be. And the first question obviously is, why am I going to do what I'm going to do? And I think in this situation, the answer is somewhat clear because you're able to not only justify the ROI, and we will talk about that here in just a second, but you're also able to say that the next year, these are the goals that we want to provide to our students or to our faculty, or this is the type of collaboration that we want to have, irrelevant of the platform, right? And so once you define these requirements and understand how you want it to work in your environment, you can then start to evaluate, well, how do I get there and how much is it going to cost me and how do I do it and so on and so forth. And so to answer these questions, then you go into the next level, which is what is the total cost of ownership. That's where you're going to start to do a return on investment exercise, right? So if we go on to the next slide, David, we can talk a little bit more about a traditional uh, uh, exercise that you want to go through. And so the first exercise is understand that the shift that's going to happen going from on-prem to cloud is going to be a shift in your expenditure. And what that means is now that you actually own your hardware or leasing it, right? It's a capital expenditure. OpEx is an operating expense, which is where your Google Cloud or any cloud expenses is going to go. So now what we're talking about is saving on your capital expenditures because you no longer have to purchase hardware to support the programs that you have in place. You essentially need to use the cloud to spin up computing resources for that exercise, which total annual cost ownership will be so much lower. Now, some people will argue that if you do, and when you do a capital expenditures, you also have depreciation, and that's fine. You can still take that 20% off of your operating, your OpEx, and you're still ahead, right? So there's really some cost advantages there. And so the next part of that is when I go through where is the best cloud for me to be at that is going to support my objectives, but it's also going to support my cost optimization strategy. Okay, and that's where you go into and say, how does this going to happen? How does each vendor, if you will, a cloud provider, is going to provide me with the best pricing, most efficient pricing at the same type of service?
Yeah, and just to inject, to your point from on-prem to cloud and moving from CapEx to OpEx, I think that one of the significant benefits of moving to the cloud is just the pure scalability, right, and the flexibility of being able to spin up and spin back down. That's just not something that you can do efficiently or effectively with an on-prem model. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. Because think about it this way. So let's say that you have a hypervisor, right? So, and you have some iron in your shop, and you're able to spin up, I don't know, 10 VMs. And then when you need to spin the 11th one, and you don't have space for it, right? So now you have to go to another piece of hardware, and so on and so on and so on, or anything else for that matter, really.
Yep.
In a cloud structure, if you need to do that, you spin it. You bring up the VM, you use it. If you don't use it, you're not going to be paying anything while you're not using it, right? So it not only allows you the time that you get there is faster, right? So you don't have to wait for hardware or anything like that. You just spin up a VM and you're done. But it's also going to be much, much cheaper.
Very good. That's certainly appealing in today's world. You want me to go ahead and jump ahead here?
Yes, please.
All right. Good deal. Yeah, appreciate that, Sam. And so cloud optimization. So now, now that we've talked a little bit about, moving to the cloud, there's obviously some optimizations that can happen in that transformation from on-premise to cloud. And then there's also certainly optimizations and right sizing, et cetera, that can take place once you're in the cloud. Can you maybe talk through some of that as well as some of your notes here around where to start with workloads?
Yeah, so the first thing is to evaluate really, okay, so now that I understand what I want to do, identify a simple workload that can be migrated to the cloud in a process that we call lift and shift. It's the lift and shift strategy is meant really to do two things. One is that we can actually take an existing VM and literally the way it is right now and move it to the cloud the way it is and have it be accessible exactly the same way it was without anybody knowing anything has happened in the background. And that's called lift and shift. And the reason for that is just to proof of concept that can be done. And it gives you somewhat level of comfort. The next thing that it does, it also you can look at your cost structure with this VM that you just uploaded and can tune it to the way that it's being used. So there are statistics and there are usage information that can look at whether you're seeing that you are over compute or under. Right. So if you're using less resources than you're allocating, you can scale it. So it goes up and down. And so it's going to essentially give you the best efficient pricing structure. Two additional ones is committed use discount. If you say, hey, look, I'm going to use this compute. I know I'm going to be using it for this long, this many hours, this many days of the year. You will get a percentage discount on that committed use. There's sustained use discount. As long as you're using your machines, you get discount. And I'm highlighting GPUs for one reason. And that goes hand in hand with any scientific research that you guys might want to do, machine learning, artificial intelligence. We support you there as well.
Very good. All right, and so Dido's here, and Sam can speak to this, but we are here to help you accelerate your path to the cloud. And Sam, I know you had some thoughts around this.
Yeah, and so this is just really highlights what I was talking about previously, and that is to essentially go and focus and figure out what your goals are. Let's focus in on an area that we might want to generate a proof of concept for, migrate that, and then optimize it. And when we're done with that, we can then refine that process back into doing something different, maybe a little bit more complex workload that we might want to start moving. And then so each time that we do this, we learn from the previous workload, not only from an efficiency and cost standpoint, but also the process of how it's done.
Very good. And some of this actually goes into this next slide here. Actually, did you have any more points on that, Sam? I didn't mean to jump ahead.
No. I'm good. If there's any questions that you want to elaborate for the audience, I'll be happy to answer those. But no, I'm good there.
Okay. Yeah, and it's the first 2 points here: assess and plan. Is really what our cloud strategy jumpstart session, or package, I should say, is really all about. So Dido does offer kind of an entry level service engagement that is really designed to help you lay the groundwork, lay the foundation to assess and plan what that looks like, what the implication. I'm gonna go ahead. What the implications are there for your organization. And I know you've got some experience, Sam, helping some of our customers through this engagement. Do you have any additional insights here that you'd like to share?
Well, the one thing I just wanted to add is that one of the things that we really try to do from the beginning is that we understand, and we have, I guess the word I would use would be empathy to anyone who's really looking to take advantage of not only the vast amount of computing. I mean, literally, there's just a vast amount of computer available at your fingertip, and how to take advantage of that, and what is the clear map to get there? How to get there the fastest way, the most cost efficient way. We've done some of these things for many customers, and we love doing it. And so we just, we're geared for it. Our technicians have just done this over and over and over again. So we're happy to help.
Yeah, and I'm back on the assessment portion of the previous slide, and part of this engagement here is we do have tools. A handful of tools that can help us sort of rapidly assess, especially your on-prem or AWS environments, to really provide some comparison and contrasting data points, true data points that can allow you to really evaluate where you are now with where you may be in the future if you were to look at Google Cloud Platform as your tooling of choice, and then also can help you quickly identify areas for optimization and right sizing of your VMs.
Absolutely. And those are actually tools, David, that I'm glad you actually mentioned that. Those are tools that are available to you for free that you could use. And if anything at all, you don't even have to use it to say, I'm going to the cloud, so let me see what my usage is. You could just use it to even just to see how efficient you are currently, right? It's called cloud physics. And when you go into cloud physics, it helps you do that. It's a virtual appliance, and it just basically monitors your VM, see how they're running, and it gives you an assessment of the usage of utilization of each VM and what could potentially be saved if you were to go on the cloud, although you don't have to get that information.
Yep. Yeah, the reporting capabilities that come out of that tool are pretty pretty comprehensive, and it's pretty remarkable the type of information they can package up for you.
Absolutely.
Sam, can you? I know we're coming up on time here, and I want to be respectful of that. But if you could take just a minute to highlight some of the bullets on the left this slide, really areas that you see as like low-hanging fruit for an organization,
Mhm. So yeah,
particularly obviously in the higher ed space to get started?
yeah. So in the higher ed spaces, the I think that the servers, those workloads, whether you have web servers or file servers or something like that, those would be low hanging fruits for you to move onto the cloud where having, and you don't have to maintain, all the OS and the patching and all of that stuff. Move those to the cloud and save yourself some money. And those are low hanging fruits. Database backup and recovery. Those are other things that can also be potentially low hanging fruit that could be done. So short of these things, there can also be other opportunities that can be discovered through a migration plan or some assessment that we would do. And then we would give you some recommendations as to what really can be done for you quickly and cost efficiently. The one thing I do want to add is that the barrier to entry is really, really low. In fact, you can start on GCP and move a workload and actually use it and still have credit left because there's a $300 credit or a $500 credit. I don't recall which one it was that you could actually use and create your first workload.
Yep, and Dido's here to help do that, and that's part of what we're offering here as part of a cloud strategy jumpstart. So I appreciate you saying that. We'll leave it there for now, and I just want to encourage folks who may be interested, and really letting Dido, I should say, help assess and plan what their cloud journey might look like. That's what we're here to do. We're here to be that conduit to the Google Cloud ecosystem and really partner with you through your journey from where you are now to where you want to be. I'll also just close out by saying that it's not just about moving your current on-prem infrastructure to the cloud or just taking advantage of the collaboration, but it's really about setting your organization up for a data-driven innovation approach to the future. And we're happy to help you along that journey. So feel free to reach out to me. Again, David Cutter, david@didoweb.com. And if I'm not the right resource, I'll be sure to connect you internally with the right people. And we'll look forward to taking care of your organization. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us here.